Hello once again from your intrepid consultant and trainer. This time, if you're wondering why I actually have a picture of the Eiffel Tower and the Metropolitan and basically a plane landing, it's because, yes, I am in Paris. This is just one of the many journeys that I've actually taken recently with regards to actually helping a customer. And I think what that does is that actually brings us to the next subject that we started to talk about in the last video cast, which was talking about Lean and Six Sigma. Now, it's important to understand that in my world, and I know I'll probably get arguments on this, that Six Sigma does not necessarily apply as well to clinical supplies as Lean does. Six Sigma really is an engineering formula that specifically talks about the fact that you have to remove a lot of the capable errors or the wash in a production cycle at every step, so that ultimately in the long run you can actually decrease the actual amount of errors as well as the non-functional units at the end by a logarithmic value, which coincidentally happens to be, to the log of 6 if I'm not mistaken, but ultimately that's one of those things that you can look up. The challenge with Six Sigma projects is that they take a long time to go ahead and identify what the issue is, then come up with actually a solution. In some cases I've actually seen some companies take anywhere between 9 months and a year and a half to actually come up with a solution, and that becomes a real issue. And the challenge with that is that in the world of clinical supplies, typically things are changing constantly, whether it be the actual patient dose pack, whether it's actually the product itself, the drug, whether it's a molecule or not. All of these things are actually changing, and therefore the concept of actually removing waste at every step of the production process is extremely difficult, because you'd have to have the same process to actually be able to identify those wasteful steps. I shouldn't say wasteful, maybe I should say more along the lines of steps that actually allow errors to happen. So, from that perspective, what I want to do is I want to actually talk about Lean today. And one of the nice things about Lean is, first we actually have to identify what Lean is. And I got some really good definition of Lean from a wonderful person who gave a great presentation, Michelle Malari, who works at Allergan. And Michelle actually went ahead and identified Lean as something that specifies the value desired by your customer. It also, makes the product flow continuously through the remaining value-added steps. So you have to identify the value stream for each product, making sure that there's value at every step, and making sure that you have a continuous improvement and that you're getting rid of the waste at every step of the way. And as we talked about, you're actually managing constantly towards perfection. Now, the key concept here is that first you have to actually identify exactly who your customer is. I have a balanced approach to that. In my world, the customer is certainly anybody that's in your downstream process or anybody that's really in your upstream process. But it's more than just looking at them as customers, because the trouble that you find yourself in sometimes, or that I've actually found myself in, is that I go through what I call customer worship, which means that I do anything I need to actually go ahead and please the customer. And that's a bad thing sometimes, because sometimes your customer doesn't really know what you want. I think that was stated perfectly by Steve Jobs, who said that he didn't like customer focus groups because in many cases the customer didn't even know what they wanted. So therefore he actually came up with a product that the customer wound up loving and valuing but never even conceived of. And even before Steve Jobs, you actually had Henry Ford that said, if I'd ever talked to any one of my customers about what kind of transportation device they would like, they would have turned to me and said, I'd like a faster horse rather than a car. So if we approach this from not really taking a look at this as customer added value, but more in terms of partner added value, then I think you actually are more moving towards the way the industry is moving these days in pharma and biotech. More and more sponsor companies are actually outsourcing a lot of operational pieces to vendors. And the vendors are stepping up to go ahead and really be that partner that a lot of these companies need. And in doing so, the actual industry is evolving into much more of a partnership. Yeah, you still have every once in a while folks that don't realize that this is a partnership and believe that, they are the customer and that they're always right. And those are folks that could get into trouble rather quickly. So the key in this whole thing is really understanding that a partnership is both of you not only helping each other out, but looking out for each other. And that actually goes back to something else that I found is very important, which is great partnerships are actually based on trust. And one of the things that I actually put together, and this is through the help of a friend of mine, Tony Listorti, who does some wonderful work on creativity, innovation, and literally providing customer value and value propositions for customers. He and I had worked together for quite some time, and he's a wonderful person. If you get the chance, go ahead and check out his stuff as well. But what we talked about was what is it that actually you have to have in order to actually build trust. And what I came up with was the 5 C's.